Imagine being on a flight, minding your business, when the crew starts treating you differently, judging you for no reason at all. What would you do? Well, this black woman had had enough and fought back in a way the flight crew never saw coming. They harassed her, but she didn't stay quiet. When she called the aviation board, things took a turn they'll never forget. Trust me, you don't want to miss this jaw-dropping story. And hey, if you're part of the Black Visionaries family, smash that like button right now and hit subscribe so you never miss stories like this one. Stories that will leave you speechless. It was supposed to be a typical flight, the kind where passengers settle into their seats, buckle up, and prepare for a peaceful journey. The flight attendants, as usual, would move down the aisle, serving refreshments, ensuring everyone was comfortable, and making small talk as they passed by. But what was about to unfold in that airplane cabin would change everything, turning a routine flight into something much more memorable, and not for the right reasons. Samantha, a confident, well-spoken woman in her early 40s, had been looking forward to this business trip. She had always prided herself on being a seasoned traveler. She knew the drill: settle in, buckle up, and make the most of her time in the air. As she slid into her window seat, her travel bag neatly placed at her feet, she felt a sense of calm and anticipation. She was eager to reach her destination, and for once, she looked forward to the quiet, uninterrupted flight that would allow her to catch up on emails or maybe even enjoy a quick nap. However, as the flight attendants began their rounds, something didn't feel right. The first encounter seemed innocent enough, a simple exchange when the young flight attendant handed her a drink. But Samantha quickly sensed the underlying tension. The attendant's smile seemed forced, and her eyes lingered just a little too long as she handed over the beverage. What followed would make Samantha realize that her usual peaceful flights were far from guaranteed. The flight attendant, a young blonde woman, approached Samantha's seat with a polite smile, offering her a refreshment as part of the usual service. Samantha, having experienced countless flights, returned the smile with a polite nod, expecting nothing more than the casual exchange that had become routine. As she took the cup from the attendant, however, there was a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. "Do you really need a second drink?" the flight attendant asked, her tone carrying an edge of judgment that Samantha immediately picked up on. Samantha was taken aback. She hadn't done anything out of the ordinary, no outbursts, no disruptive behavior. She was simply a passenger, enjoying a quiet moment. But the attendant's demeanor seemed to carry an unspoken question, as though she were scrutinizing Samantha's every move. "Excuse me." Samantha responded, her voice tinged with surprise, trying to make sense of the situation. "Oh, I just thought you might have had enough," the attendant replied, almost dismissively, as if she were scolding her for something trivial. Her words, while soft, felt sharp, laced with an unspoken assumption. Before Samantha could respond, a second figure loomed at her side. It was a more senior flight attendant, an older man with a white beard. He didn't speak a word but stood there with an unsettling presence, arms crossed, eyes fixed on Samantha. The unspoken judgment in his posture only heightened Samantha's growing sense of discomfort. She wasn't imagining it. Something wasn't right. As the plane cruised at 30,000 feet, Samantha's sense of unease grew. What had started as an innocent interaction now felt like something far more sinister. Every time the flight attendants passed by, there was an added layer of scrutiny in their eyes, a strange intensity that seemed to follow her. They didn't simply walk by. They lingered, casting sidelong glances, as if waiting for her to make a misstep. Samantha tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just her imagination, but the unease wouldn't dissipate. She felt like an outsider, like she didn't belong in the quiet, unbothered world of the other passengers. Then, the moment came that shattered her patience. The same flight attendant, the young blonde woman, rolled the drink cart past her seat again. Normally, this would have been a simple exchange of pleasantries, but not this time. Instead of offering her a drink with the usual politeness, the attendant paused and made another sharp remark. "Are you sure you don't want something lighter? Or maybe you should just stick to water." It wasn't the words themselves, but the tone, the judgment that seeped through. The question wasn't casual. It was laced with an unspoken assumption. Samantha's patience snapped. She had endured enough. This wasn't just about drinks anymore. It was the way they spoke to her, the dismissiveness, the subtle but constant undermining. She knew she had to take action before it went any further. Samantha could feel her pulse quicken, but her resolve only strengthened. She had been silent for far too long, tolerating behavior that was neither appropriate nor justified. Standing up from her seat, she calmly reached for her phone, her fingers steady despite the growing intensity inside her. She unlocked her phone with purpose and dialed the aviation board, an authority she had once only heard of in passing, never imagining she would need to call them herself. As she began to speak into the phone, the flight attendant, sensing the shift in Samantha's energy, stepped forward and asked, "Excuse me, is there a problem?" Samantha didn't flinch. "I think there is," she said firmly, her voice unwavering. "I'm calling the aviation board right now, and I will not tolerate being treated like this. You're discriminating against me." The flight attendant's expression faltered, her smile turning to concern. The older man's stance, which had been so authoritative just moments ago, shifted awkwardly. They hadn't expected such a calm, assertive response, and it clearly threw them off balance. Within moments, Samantha was speaking to someone from the aviation board. She methodically explained every detail of the situation, making sure her voice was heard. The representative on the other end listened attentively, acknowledging her complaint with respect. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Ms. Washington. We'll handle it from here," the representative assured her. It didn't take long for the consequences of Samantha's actions to unfold. The flight attendants, who had once held their positions with such confidence, were now visibly uncomfortable. A few minutes after Samantha's call to the aviation board, the shift in the flight crew's demeanor was undeniable. The older man approached her again, but this time he seemed almost disarmed, his posture entirely different. He was no longer authoritative but apologetic, a stark contrast to the attitude he had displayed earlier. "We're sorry for any misunderstanding, Ms. Washington. It wasn't our intention to make you feel uncomfortable," he said, his voice laced with a forced politeness. Samantha didn't let their apology sway her. She wasn't interested in them feeling guilty. What mattered was accountability. She wanted them to understand the gravity of their actions, and that's exactly what she had made clear. By the time the plane touched down, the atmosphere had completely shifted. The flight attendants no longer walked with the same certainty, and other passengers had started to catch on to what had transpired. As Samantha disembarked, she felt a wave of satisfaction. She had taken action when many would have stayed silent. She had stood up for herself and ensured that those responsible faced the consequences of their actions. And as for the flight attendants, they would forever remember the moment they crossed the line and how quickly they regretted it when they realized the power of standing up for what's right. If you're part of the Black Visionaries family, hit that like button right now and subscribe because you don't want to miss more jaw-dropping stories like this one. What happens next with the CEO is something you won't believe. Trust me, it's a game changer. Drop a comment, share this video, and make sure you're part of the conversation. Hit that bell so you're the first to know when we drop our next shocking story. Let's keep growing together and keep the vision alive.